How do men and women differ in the way they evaluate mates? Well, here's a study. More than 1,000 respondents, primarily female. What they looked at was how much prestige each person had in their occupation, so kind of where they were situated in the dominance hierarchy, what their income was and their education. So they're all markers, they're all pretty decent markers of socioeconomic status, or they're pretty decent markers of status. So, and then they looked at how many partners each person had, number of lifetime partners, and number of preceding year sexual partners. Lifetime occurrence of simultaneous partners, so that was someone who was in a sexual relationship with more than one person at the same time. And lifetime frequency of simultaneous partners, from 1 very seldom or never to 5 very often. Here's their assumption. The number of partners a member of sex A acquires is an index of how often this individual is chosen by the other sex. It's just a definition. It's an indication of reproductive fitness as judged by members of the opposite sex. Results. Male criteria. For women, the correlation between their fertility rates and the number of partners in the previous year was 0.94. So that's basically markers of biological youth. And also markers of biological health, like symmetry, or waist-to-hip ratio, which actually tends to be correlated with reproductive fitness, because women with lower waist-to-hip ratios are generally healthier, because especially in youth, the acquisition of abdominal fat is often an indicator of subpar physical health. The correlation between the fertility rate and the number of partners in the previous year is 0.94. That's all of it. Right? You never see a correlation of 0.94 anywhere, ever. Males choose fertility, indicators, beauty, waist-to-hip ratio, youthful appearance, neonatinous facial features. And neonatinous means like an infant. So one of the markers of feminine beauty is a face that has small, childlike features. Female criteria. All respondents. The correlation between socioeconomic status and frequency of simultaneous partners. For men, it's 0.5. So the higher the status of the man, the more likely he has simultaneous sexual partners. So it means he's going out with someone sexually at the same time. For men, it's 0.49. For women, it's 0. Age 30 and over. Correlation between socioeconomic status and frequency of simultaneous partners. For men, it's 0.8. For women, it's 0. Age 30 to 39, the correlation between socioeconomic status for women and frequency of simultaneous partners. For men, it's 0.92. That's a very small n, though. For women, it's 0.11. Female criteria for men. It might reflect a tendency on the part of females to choose high-status partners during their own peak reproductive years. This might account especially for the strong relationship found in men between the age of 30 and 39. Women who typically prefer men 3 to 8 years older than they are would then be in their mid to late 20s, a time when fecundability and thus sensitivity to male resources is at its peak. Supporting evidence. I don't believe that, by the way. I don't think that women pick men for their socioeconomic status. I think that women pick men for their ability to climb the status hierarchy, because we forced women in an experiment that we never published to choose between those two things. Wealth versus ability. The women overwhelmingly chose ability. They just used wealth as a marker of ability. Yeah?
Why didn't you publish that?
It was an honors thesis. And often honors theses, even if they're publishable, drift into the thing I'll do next month, and then they stay there forever. So, because it's actually quite hard to turn an honors thesis into a publishable paper, and if there isn't some single person driving that forward, it's not going to happen. So that was the only reason. Okay, so Trivers. Parental investment model contends that women are more likely than men to seek a mate who possesses non-physical characteristics that maximize the survival or reproductive prospects of their offspring, and were examined in a meta-analysis of mate selection research. As predicted, women accorded more weight than men to socioeconomic status, ambitiousness, character, and intelligence, and the largest gender differences were observed for cues to resource acquisition, status, and ambitiousness. Also, as predicted, gender preferences were not found in preferences for characteristics unrelated to progeny survival, like sense of humor and general personality. Where valid comparisons could be made, the findings were generally invariant across generations, cultures, and research paradigms. I'll go to this next one. Yeah. Okay, so here's some correlations. One of them is between how much money you make and your personality. So the correlation between neuroticism and how much money you get paid is negative 0.3. The higher you are in neuroticism, the less you make, less you get paid. Why? Why do you think that is? Well, because you're not confident in your own abilities. You have low self-esteem. And if you're not confident in your own abilities and you're anxious about your performance, the probability that you're going to feel confident and calm about negotiating for more money or even asking for a raise is quite low. Extroversion and money made, virtually no correlation. Openness, no correlation. Agreeableness, negative 0.24. Now, you might not think that those correlations are very large, but if the correlation between neuroticism and money made is negative 0.3, if you translate that into an effect size, this is called a binomial effect size distribution, just the effect of neuroticism will ensure that 65% of men make more money than average and 35% of women make more money than average. Just the effect of neuroticism. And if you add neuroticism and agreeableness together, I have to do the math because I have to take the square root. It's 0.5. I can't do that in front of a class, unfortunately. It's going to push it up to about 70-30 or higher than that. There's a little bit of a negative correlation between conscientiousness and money made. Ascendancy, how well you progress up the ranks. Yes? I don't know, because I didn't look in detail into the models they use, so I was just going to stick to the zero order correlations. So, ascendancy, negative 0.21 for neuroticism, negative 0.14 for agreeableness. The effects are larger if you total them. Let's see. Here's a good one. This is something to think about. Job satisfaction. The correlation with neuroticism is negative 0.42. That's a big one. One of the things that's very interesting about neuroticism is it's also a very good predictor of marital satisfaction. And it's interesting in that light to note that 70% of divorces are initiated by women. Now, one reason for that is that men are impossible to get along with. And the other possibility is that women are too sensitive to that, and there's no way of sorting that out. But it's nonetheless interesting to note that that's still where the gender difference lies. Neuroticism. Correlation with job satisfaction, negative 0.42. Correlation with life satisfaction, negative 0.42. Correlation with career satisfaction, negative 0.41. So one of the things you want to remember is that almost all the measures that purport to measure something like well-being or happiness or satisfaction are so contaminated with neuroticism that it's not even clear that they're measuring something different. You see, agreeableness, the correlation with career satisfaction is negative 0.2. If you get men to rate their performance, and you get their bosses to rate their performance, men rate their performance pretty much the same as the bosses rate their performance, or maybe they rate them a little bit more. But if women rate their own performance, they rate their own performance as worse than their boss's rating of their performance consistently. And the predictor of that seems to be negative emotionality. Now you might wonder if negative emotionality is something that's associated with lower levels of life satisfaction across a broad variety of measures. What possible use could it be? But then you have to wonder, well, exactly how is the physical environment different for women and for men? And one clear fact is that at an individual level, at least in relationship to dominance battles with men, women are at a disadvantage, not least because of their size.